Picture this. I'm standing in my own living room shaking hands with Michigan's Attorney General, talking about how my HOA president has been running a years-long scam on the elderly, when my cabin door doesn't just knock. It explodes open, and in storms Brenda Wickshire, clipboard locked in a death grip, shrieking about immediate compliance before she's even looked up. I swear for 6 months this woman's tried every trick in the book to steal my late grandfather's lake cabin, forging fines, manufacturing liens, you name it, and now right here she's gone full criminal with a breaking and entering. Here's the kicker. She freezes mid-tirade when she sees Michigan's top prosecutor standing in my kitchen. The AG doesn't flinch, just calmly tells her, "Ma'am, you just committed multiple felonies in front of the chief law enforcement officer of this state. Please wait outside while we discuss your criminal charges." Brenda's face goes ghost white. And in that instant, I knew justice was about to be served ice cold. So, how'd I end up in the middle of this crazy war? Well, my name's Rex Holloway, and 3 years ago I inherited my grandfather's old cabin on the edge of Lakeshore Pines, Michigan, 2.3 acres of woods and water built by his own hands after Korea. You ever run your fingers along hand-hewn cedar and still catch the smell of old spice and sawdust? That's what this place was, history, legacy, and all the stories of family barbecues, Christmases, summers spent fishing off the dock Grandpa built for us. I moved in after my divorce looking for peace, and instead got Brenda, who, honest to God, is the human version of a paper cut you can't get rid of. Brenda, late 50s, failed insurance adjuster, now self-crowned queen of the HOA, patrolling the neighborhood in her spotless Highlander, with HOA official plastered across the bumper, ironed khakis, sharp enough to cut you, and a measuring tape she wields like a sword. She bullied her way to president in under 2 years, promising to protect property values, and then proceeded to make life hell for anyone who couldn't fight back. Bird feeders. Vermin violation. Vietnam vets, flagpole 3 inches too tall. Lawsuit. Widow's memorial wind chimes, noise pollution, ma'am. But she had a special interest in my place because my cabin sat on the best slice of lakefront built before her HOA even existed. First time she showed up at my door, she handed me a courtesy notice, 47 violations, everything from my dock supposedly being 3 feet too long to the fire pit being an unpermitted combustion structure. $500 in fees, plus $75 a day, until I complied. When I pointed out my place had stood here decades before the HOA was even a twinkle in her eye, Brenda just smiled that cold smile and said, "Previous ownership is irrelevant, Mr. Holloway. All properties within HOA jurisdiction must comply regardless of construction date. 30 days, or we file a lien." Yeah, a lien on land my grandfather built with calloused hands and blue-collar sweat. That night I drove to the county courthouse and started digging. What I found had my hands shaking. Turns out the HOA paperwork was filed 3 months after Grandpa died, with his signature forged by the developer's son, who just happened to be on the current board. Not a clerical error, a planned, calculated fraud. But proving it wasn't going to be easy. I needed evidence, patience, and a plan 10 times better than Brenda's pathetic brand of tyranny. War was on, but I didn't even realize the scale. Brenda had been fleecing the entire neighborhood, targeting the vulnerable. My first taste came a week later when she showed up at 6:30 a.m. with a surveyor and Dale Pritchard, the local tire guy, who looked like he wanted to crawl into the lake and disappear. They stomped around for hours, Brenda barking orders, snapping hundreds of photos, even through my windows. But I'd installed security cameras the night before, so every moment was recorded, legal and clear. Later I dug up that Pritchard owed 18 grand in back taxes, and Brenda's own insurance license had been pulled for fraudulent claims. The hypocrisy was thick enough to cut. And then came the twist. The surveyor Jimmy quietly confided Brenda only paid him half and pressured him to invent violations, threatening to ruin his career if he didn't play along. "Help me get my money back, I'll testify," he said. The next day my camera caught him relieving himself behind my shed. Not exactly a crime, but when Brenda heard about it, she went ballistic. "I'm reporting this as a health code violation," she shrieked. "Sure," I told her, "but you might want to explain to the health department why you hired someone like that." The comedy would have been funnier if Brenda hadn't already slapped me with a $12,000 lawsuit and was pushing to have my dock shut down while the court sorted things out. Her biggest mistake, though, was running her mouth at Murphy's Diner, telling anyone who'd listen that I was a dangerous, unstable veteran. Not only was that defamation, it built a rock-solid pattern of harassment for my future countersuit. Every photo, every thread, every word, I documented it all. Brenda thought she was tightening the noose around me, but all she was doing was weaving her own legal straitjacket. I hired Stella Crawford, a property attorney out of Grand Rapids, who's got steel in her eyes and a grin that means trouble for her enemies. "Michigan has private attorney general statutes," she explained over coffee. "You uncover systematic fraud, you can sue for everyone Brenda's victimized. And my cabin, being built pre-HOA, wasn't even legally subject to their rules. We filed a counterclaim, fraudulent formation, elder abuse, harassment, the works." At the next HOA meeting, Dale Pritchard let slip in front of the whole board that the formation paperwork was sketchy from day one. The room went dead silent, and Brenda looked like she'd been smacked with her own clipboard. That's when my neighbors started coming out of the woodwork. Martha, whose garden Brenda made her dig up after 40 years of marriage. Tom, the Afghanistan vet who admitted he'd never been more scared of anyone in his life. The young couple fined for their twins' chalk drawings. One by one, people started to see the pattern: Brenda targeting anyone who couldn't fight back, using HOA power to squeeze the vulnerable. And just when Brenda should have backed off, she escalated. Daily compliance inspections, calls to my mortgage company through her brother-in-law at the bank, phony environmental violations. She'd even show up at 9 p.m., squatting behind my bushes to catch supposed infractions. It was like living with a stalker. My daughter called from college, worried sick, my ex-wife pressing about legal fees and college funds, and I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about legacy, my granddad's cabin and the people she'd hurt. Then the money trail cracked open. 67 grand missing from the HOA reserves funneled to Brenda's own company, which had never managed a single property. That cash bankrolled her son's failed restaurant and covered casino debts. The kicker. My cameras caught her at 11 p.m. dumping a bag of rotting fish near my septic tank, then calling the county in the morning with an anonymous environmental complaint. The inspector arrived, took one whiff, and found seasoned fish fry from Murphy's Diner. Brenda, wearing her trademark pink gardening gloves, looked like she might throw up. And then another twist: Danny Jimmy, the surveyor's brother, and a PI Brenda hired to dig up dirt on me, confessed she'd asked him to plant evidence and fabricate violations. Handed me the recordings, crystal clear: find something or make it up. I'll pay a bonus if it sticks. Both Kowalski brothers agreed to testify. Brenda's entire web was collapsing. But desperate people make dumb mistakes. Brenda filed a false police report, claimed I threatened her with my military skills. The officer, after reviewing my mountain of evidence, just shook his head. Keep documenting, he advised. Brenda tried bribing the county inspector to write up violations, called my ex-wife with stories I was unstable, and paid a teenager $50 to dump motor oil by my dock for more phony complaints. Every move added to my case. Then came the local news, Channel 7, pulled into my drive, cameras rolling. Brenda had fed them a sob story about a dangerous veteran terrorizing the neighborhood. I let the reporter in, set out the document, security footage, neighbor testimonies. The story aired that night not as Brenda wanted, but as the truth. HOA horror when neighbors attack. The AG's office confirmed an investigation, and Brenda's victims across Michigan started coming forward, forming a wave of support. The Attorney General bumped up our meeting. I gathered my neighbors, the coffee club, to coordinate. We'd gone from isolated victims to an organized resistance, documenting everything: fraud, harassment, financial abuse, and even started a Rex Defense Fund at the hardware store. And the final proof. In Grandpa's trunk beneath his medals and old letters was the original 1960 deed showing our property stretched 40 feet further, right under Brenda's rose garden and gazebo. All her improvements sat on my land. The whole HOA formation built on fraudulent boundaries. The big day came. Attorney General Santos arrived at my cabin for our meeting, just as Brenda burst in with her tape measure, barking about new violations. She froze when she saw the AG's badge. "Ma'am, you've committed breaking and entering, trespassing, and harassment in front of Michigan's chief law enforcement officer." Brenda tried to bluster, but Santos was ready. "We have video of you planting evidence, audio of you instructing investigators to fabricate violations, proof you've embezzled over $60,000. I laid out my grandfather's deed showing her precious rose garden was mine." Brenda nearly fainted. Within a week, the FBI swooped in. Brenda and Pritchard were arrested at dawn, her clipboard left on the driveway like a fallen crown. The judge dissolved the HOA, ordered restitution for every victim, and Brenda got 5 years in federal prison. The community came together. Gardens restored, flags raised, neighbors healing. My daughter came home proud of her old man. Martha runs the bookings for a veterans retreat I started at the cabin. Tom leads fishing trips for vets, and the old coffee can fund became a symbol of real community, no clipboards required. Brenda's old rose garden now a community compost bin, nourishing Martha's new memorial flowers. In the end, justice wasn't just served, it took root. Every night I sit on my dock, coffee in hand, thinking how one bully united a whole neighborhood. Standing up to a petty tyrant isn't just about winning for yourself, it's about protecting the next guy too. So, what would you do if your HOA nightmare turned into a fight for your entire community? Tell your story down in the comments, because you never know who might need that courage next. And if you believe in standing up to bullies, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because next time I'll tell you about the small town mayor who tried to shut down a vet's food truck and what happened when he picked the wrong soldier to mess with.